What is good, streaming people? Welcome to CBS Sports HQ, brought to you by Fresh Pet. It's not dog food, it's food food. That's Pete Prisco, that's Brady Quinn, that's Amanda Guerra. I'm Tommy Trent. Guys, it's Tuesday. You know what that means.
Oh, Pete's Power Rankings.
You're ready for those, aren't you?
I love them every Tuesday.
I know, you can't wait.
Did they take more this week? Because, I mean, there was a lot of shifting around.
There was a lot of teams that we thought were good that might not be as good as we thought they were.
All right, let's take a look at Pete's Power Rankings. As mentioned, a lot of movement across the board, but specifically when it comes to the top, we got teams like the Ravens, the Jags, the Bengals, all falling out of the top 5. Eagles maintaining that #1 status. Chiefs moving up to #2, but say hello to the Lions, the Cowboys, and the 49ers. Biggest faller this week, by the way, the Jags dropping 7 spots to #10 after that loss to the 49ers. So that's the bad, but what about the good? The Detroit Lions. Lions with an impressive win over the Chargers Sunday. Their record for the season now sitting at 7-2 at the top of the NFC North. And as Pete Prisco will point out very shortly, in contention for the top seed in the NFC. So how would Jared Goff describe his team's go-get-it attitude? He's got one word.
I mean, a huge kick down there to win the game, but this was a 4th down kind of game. That 4th and 2 call, what about how gutsy it was from your head coach and your offensive coordinator?
Yeah, ballsy. I don't know if I can say that, but ballsy, and it paid off. And we love when he puts us in those positions to make those plays. And you know, he's got balls of steel, and today he showed it.
Fresh Takes presented by Fresh Pet. It is not just dog food, it is food food. Fresh Takes brought to you by Pete Prisco. How about that? Look, Lions, you talked about them being a contender for the top seed in the NFC. Pretty favorable schedule moving forward for them as well.
It is a favorable schedule, and if you look at the Eagles' schedule not so favorable. So if they play the way they've been playing and win those games that they should win, they have a legitimate chance to end up with the #1 seed in the conference. And again, it was a great showing in terms of their offense. The defense, not so much. So that's a little bit of a concern going forward. They didn't really get the pressure they wanted to. And I'm going to say this, I didn't like the decision. Dan Campbell got away with one. Down the road, you better be smarter than that, because these games are going to be tighter and better, and you're going to be playing better competition.
I think he will be, but I also think there comes a point in time, especially the way that game went, where you have to score and you've got to take advantage of keeping the football when you can. You can't afford to give the football back to the other team with the way that was kind of a track meet back and forth. You got to win in a variety of ways. The Lions have been able to prove that, and I think their offense, led by Jared Goff, he's been outstanding. You call it the partnership between him and Ben Johnson, because Ben Johnson is subtly becoming maybe the best play caller in the NFL, utilizing their pieces. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a top 10 wide receiver. Anyone who wants to challenge that, go ahead and do it. But watch the tape. Watch this young man. He's an incredible route runner. He's got strong hands. He'll run anywhere across the field and make plays for this offense. And the defense has been improved. This wasn't their best performance this past week, but it's a much improved team from where they were a year ago. And when they need to get some stops and they need to make a play, they've done that a large majority of this season.
Eagles have a big game coming up against the Chiefs. Look, so many people are going to be talking about that. But when it comes to the Eagles and the Lions, do you feel like one is more the complete team right now moving forward?
Well, I still think the Eagles are the best team in the conference, although the 49ers, when they get healthy and now they got everybody back, they're probably the best team. But the Eagles are right there with them. You know, the Lions' defense concerned me the other day. That was, you know, you played quarterback like Justin Herbert, and you mentioned get a stop. They didn't get a stop late. The Eagles have had problems covering people as well, though, so they've had issues in their pass defense. So everybody has issues. It's who's going to solve them in the next 6 weeks as we get down the stretch.
Yeah, I think when you go back and look at last year, obviously Kansas City won the Super Bowl. They're the most dominant team. They lost once after week 7 all the way through the Super Bowl. Maybe we start to see, whether it's Philly, Detroit, someone else, start to get on a run like that moving forward. I think the problem for Philly is what you pointed out. Their schedule is so difficult down the stretch here.
You mentioned San Francisco. They did get healthy. Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel and company back there. You moved them up there back into the top 5. Pete Prisco, what do you still need to see from San Francisco, and thoughts on that game against Texas?
Why aren't they 4? They've beat the Cowboys.
Yeah. They lost 3 in a row, Brady.
Okay, but they beat the Cowboys. We've seen them head to head.
They lost 3 in a row recently, too. Look, I picked them to win the Super Bowl. I don't like the other pick I made to play them in the Super Bowl, but I did pick them to win the Super Bowl, and now that they get everybody back, they are a dominant team. And, oh, by the way, they added Chase Young. And Chase Young had a sack. He had pressures. They get after the quarterback. They went to Jacksonville and physically mauled Jacksonville. Just mauled them from the word get-go. Beat them up. Threw them around and said, nope, not today, fellas, and they dominated that game from start to finish.
They should be number 4. I don't know what you're doing.
Okay, you're nitpicking.
I am, but that's why I'm here. I will say this, though. The addition of Debo, getting Debo Samuel back.
He labeled himself.
You look at 2 things. The physicality of the offensive line with Trent Williams, that showcased itself. All of a sudden, everything's improved in pass protection. It's also Debo Samuel, though, and the way they utilize him. We kind of talked about it on Sunday. You know, is he that big of a piece in their offense where you kind of see this lull over the past few weeks? You get him back, and yeah, he is, because he's a tough matchup. When he's on the field, he can do so many different things, and it takes your eyes off then Christian McCaffrey or George Kittle or Brandon Ayuk, and there's so many different things you have to deal with. So this team healthy probably is the most talented and the best team in the NFC. It's no disrespect to the Eagles, but I think at times you've seen them kind of struggle this year. Can't wait to see it. I hope those are the 2 teams playing off for it when it's all said and done. A lot of football left to be played. We'll see how it works out, but they should be the number 4 team. They beat Dallas. We've already seen that story before.
Okay.
No final word here? You're good?
They have the same record.
They lost 3 in a row.
They have the same record.
They lost 3 in a row.
And they beat Dallas.
I know, but they lost 3 in a row.
All right,
It's
nitpicker,
impossible.
hang on one second. Let's talk about the Browns here, your biggest riser this week, moving up to 6 spots to number 7, I believe. So many people talking about Deshaun Watson. They're talking about this Browns defense, and you say a lot more credit needs to go to Kevin Stefanski.
He's kept his team together. I mean, this team, everybody, with everything that's gone on, and the quarterback mess, the one that you highlighted in great detail over the last month, I think that he's kept this team together, and that's the most impressive thing, because this thing could have frayed and fallen apart and become really ugly, and he's done a great job with that. Watson played well down the stretch last week.
He brought them back.
That's a good sign for the Cleveland Browns, because we know defensively, and they weren't great on defense last week, but they're still made plays when they had to in the 4th quarter. They had the pick late. That was enormous for them to get back in the game. But Kevin Stefanski deserves a lot of credit for keeping his team together.
He does. I still think Deshaun Watson in this offense isn't going to maximize what he's capable of. Because down the stretch when he's scrambling, he's making plays like that. That's not Kevin Stefanski's offense. That's Deshaun Watson. That's him toughing through injuries and playing. So we'll see how this continues the rest of the way. Not to take anything away from what Cleveland did. They're a playoff team. I had them as a playoff team before the season. But against Baltimore, if you go back and look at it, I mean, Baltimore never should have been throwing when they were backed up with 8 minutes to go in the game to allow a batted pass that ends up being a pick 6. They just shouldn't have. They averaged over 4 yards per attempt with their running backs alone, not even including Lamar Jackson in that. You take more time off the clock, you're up 2 touchdowns. There's no reason to throw the ball in 2nd and 8 and allow Cleveland to get back in the game like that. I still think Baltimore, and they split this season, I still think they're the better team when it's all said and done, but Cleveland will be in the playoffs, and maybe we get to see round 3 between these 2.
Lamar's got to quit melting down in the big moments late in games. It's happened a couple different times this season.
Don't throw Lamar in that conversation, because you could throw a lot of people in that conversation of late.
He threw the interception. He threw the interception in the end zone against Pittsburgh when they lost that.
Okay, Joe Burrow threw one in Cincinnati. I don't hear you call him out.
Call him out too. I call them all out.
No, you don't call them all out.
I call them all out.
I don't know about that.
They played an ultra-competitive division. We get Thursday night where the Browns and its fans will be sitting watching Bengals and Ravens obviously duke it out. Let's get to a team down in the AFC South, the Houston Texans. We talked a lot about C.J. Stroud and the Offensive Rookie of the Year and MVP market here. But what about the Texans in the division? Sportsline still likes the Jags at 58%, but they give the Texans 42%. Pete, what are you thinking about them moving them up just on the outside of the top 10?
The schedule is so favorable for the Texans in the next 5 weeks, whereas Jacksonville's schedule is brutal. And I think that's the biggest difference. And that's why the Texans have a legitimate chance to win the division. Jacksonville plays at the Texans in 2 weeks. Then they have the Bengals and the Ravens. Those are tough games. Whereas the Texans have Arizona this week. They have games against Tennessee. They have Denver at home. They have a favorable schedule. I still think Jacksonville's the better team. History says they've had problems against the Texans in their history, including earlier this year. So on paper, Jacksonville might look like the better team, but the Texans have a giant advantage now going forward.
I think what's going to be interesting moving forward is, can C.J. Stroud keep this up? Because if he can, he's going to be the MVP of the league. He'll win a Rookie of the Year. He's already got that wrapped up. It'll be whether or not he can then win MVP of the league, because he's carried this team. Defensively, it hasn't been great. I know they've suffered some injuries at times. They get Derek Stingley back this past week. That helps. But they haven't had much of a running game either, even though this week the running game started to come on. So the rest of the team around him, and obviously excluding the pass catchers because they've done their part, and the offensive line protecting him, they need to help him out. They need more balance on offense, and they need to provide a little bit more defensive help so he doesn't have to throw for over 800 yards the past 2 weeks and these heroic fourth quarter comebacks to win. It's tough to win every single week like that, regardless of what your schedule looks like in the NFL, especially for a rookie.
The biggest difference between the Texans and the Jaguars right now is one team throws the ball down the field and the other one throws it to the sidelines. The Jacksonville Jaguars offense is a mess right now. It is so horizontal and not vertical. They've taken the ball out of Trevor Lawrence's hands, and as a result, he's struggling. He's not getting to his progressions. Their passing game is bad. The Texans' passing game is outstanding. That's the biggest difference between the two teams right now.
Pete, you said this in your power rankings. Here come the Texans. Something else you said in your power rankings when it came to the Bills. You said if things don't get fixed by the end of the season, heads will roll. That started today, letting go of offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey.
Yeah, I wrote that last night, by the way.
There you go. The Bills now sitting at 5-5. What do you think about this move to let him go?
Well, you don't like it.
No, it's a terrible move. He ends up being the scapegoat for what the issues have been. And here's the odd thing. Go back to 2021. They're in a very similar skid. 2-4 over the last 6 games, 13 turnovers. All the stats are almost identical. And Sean McDermott hung with Brian Daboll. And they ended up coming out of it, becoming a playoff team. They found their way out of it. I don't know why he doesn't want to stick with Ken Dorsey in this case. It's not like he's out there creating a lot of the turnovers and the issues that we're seeing right now. I mean, everyone plays a part in it. Obviously, Josh Allen's going to be accountable for it. We've seen a lot of the chances he's taken and some of the plays he's made, but the pass catchers too, tip balls, drop balls, protection, or guys fumbling. I mean, it's the entire offense right now. I just feel like this was a moment where if you're Sean McDermott and everyone on the outside's questioning, this is where you look within. You don't look on the outside and start listening to some of that conversation. Look, maybe ownership came down and said he had to make a move. Who knows what's going on inside that locker room? But I hate this move. I think this is one where you stay steadfast in your belief in your staff and your team, and you will pull through all of this. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And so now Joe Brady takes over, and we'll see what it looks like. It wasn't like things worked all that great during his time when he was with the Carolina Panthers.
No, but he didn't have Josh Allen either when he was with the Carolina Panthers. Look, I think this offense has been stagnant. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to put the blame on the offensive coordinator, whether you want to fire him or not. It's not the way it's supposed to look. And Sean McDermott ultimately is responsible. In his grand plan, he would have had a great defense. He would have run the ball more. He wouldn't have had Allen taking chances. And it was great. But then everybody got hurt on defense. They're not great. They played pretty good on defense last night, but they're not a great defense anymore. So what do? You have to let the quarterback go. Let him play loose. Let him play free. Yeah, he's going to make mistakes. That's who he is. That's part of Josh Allen's. He's like Brett Favre. That's part of who he is. But you have to let him play up-tempo and fast. How many times did Diggs get the ball last night?
Hold on a second. Up-tempo and fast
like
is different than being careless with the ball.
I get it, but if you throw 45 times, you're going to turn the ball over sometimes. But you also might end up with 35 points.
Okay, but for example, we just talked about C.J. Stroud. How many pass attempts has he had the past 2 weeks? He's got 2 interceptions the whole season. This is an excuse. This is an excuse. He's used as a scapegoat. You can make whatever argument you want. It's an excuse. And people will say, well, what about Brett Favre and all his picks and the comparison between Brett Favre would throw into double, triple coverage because he's got a strong arm. He was that talented. We can try to do that. And guess what? And sometimes that's where you're going to turn the football over. When you throw the ball a bunch and you got a smart, good decision maker, a quarterback who's not to put the ball in harm's way, you're not going to have that sort of touchdown interception ratio. Did the Packers didn't throw the ball a bunch when Aaron Rodgers was there?
Yeah.
He's one of the greatest touchdown interception ratios in the history of the NFL. Tom Brady, all the rest.
There's no way Josh Allen should have a game where he's throwing for under 200 yards passing.
By the way, you're negating the fact of some of the fumbles and things that took place. It's not just him. It's everyone involved.
Right, the whole offense.
But they're using Ken Dorsey as the scapegoat.
One interception was on him. The one was on him. That was a terrible
what about the fumbles?
But yeah, but who was at fault for that?
James Cook on the first one on the catch, and obviously give up a fumble there. Right. On the exchange, maybe you put on Allen, maybe you put on Cook.
Right.
It's both parties involved.
I get it, but you're not defending a quarterback. You're defending a coordinator. I like it. It's something different.
Because this is not the moment to panic and go boop. Let's fire someone.
I don't know if Joe Brady's the answer, but you could tell reading through the tea leaves and everything that Josh Allen was not happy with the way the games have been called. He said it. He hinted at it last week. McDermott said it. By the way, McDermott should worry about his end of game scenarios. All out, 0 blitz, 2 plays in a row, and then he's responsible for.
What do you mean, 12 men on the field? You can't figure that out too?
That too.
Okay.
We found out who it was too.
So a lot of things need to be fixed when it comes to the Buffalo Bills. By the way, Sportsline giving them just a 21% chance now to make the postseason. All right, Pete, Brady, hang on just a second. Drink some water, something like that. Maybe, just hang out.
San Francisco should be
shaking their eyes, looking at one another. If you would like more NFL from these guys, make sure to tune into the Pick Six podcast. Latest episode recapping what happened in Week 10. They're also taking a look ahead, to Week 11, including an early look at the line, some odds, some picks, predictions, and betting.